What I'm going to tell you in this video will hurt, but it will deeply free you. She didn't betray you with her body. Not yet. But her gaze is no longer yours. And this is the problem that almost no man sees in time. Betrayal begins long before the motel. It begins when her name is still saved as love on your phone, but she's already deleted you from her desire. And right now, as you watch this video, thousands of men are being made fools of. Praised in the morning, ignored at night, used as an emotional ladder while another man climbs into her bed. What you need to understand before any tactic or test is that female infidelity is rarely impulsive. It is engineered in silence, skillfully protected by mechanical smiles and emotional strategies. A woman doesn't cheat when she's dissatisfied. She cheats when she's found someone who makes her feel what you no longer can. And the cruelest thing? She'll let you keep thinking everything's fine until it's too late. But here's the first brutal truth. If you ignore the signs, you deserve to be deceived. Because the clues are there, they always have been. It's just that male pride creates a convenient blindness. She's tired, it was just a bad day. No, my dear. The constant disinterest, the disappearing touch, the sex that becomes an obligation, all of this isn't wear and tear. It's a diversion. It's like Ortega y Gasset said, surrender happens when fascination changes address. And Nietzsche added, what is happiness if not the feeling that our power grows? If it no longer grows with you, it's already growing elsewhere. And before you justify yourself by saying you gave your all, did your best, were faithful, let me remind you of something. Fidelity isn't a merit. It's the bare minimum. And no one stays out of gratitude, especially a woman who still feels alive. She stays out of desire. And if she stopped admiring you, the door is open to someone she will admire. It could be the guy from the gym, an ex who's reappeared, or even that friend who always bothered you. And if you don't understand the game, you become a disposable piece. That's why this video isn't just a warning, it's a map. Here, you'll learn to recognize the subtle signs that betray the presence of another man. But more than that, you'll understand the silent psychology of female infidelity. Because the question is no longer, did she cheat on me? But rather, when she started pulling away, what was I doing? If you keep deceiving yourself, her next romantic dinner will be with someone else. Her next smile won't be for you. And worst of all, the last one to know is always the one who gave the most. But if you stick around until the end of this video, you'll have the tools to no longer be an easy target in a game that's already begun without you knowing. She didn't need to say anything. She didn't need to confess or write or blurt out. All it took was that reflexive micro-gesture, when you approached her phone and she instinctively turned the screen face down. This is the point most men still ignore, laughing at their own naivete. Nonsense of me, he thinks. But the truth? That turned screen was the silent end of the trust she once had in you. The phone isn't just an object. It's the modern altar of intimacy. It's where she keeps conversations, desires, compliments, screenshots of things that touched her, and often messages that should never have been written. And that's why, when her behavior changes with the device, it's because another presence has already changed how she feels about you. You know something's wrong when she starts applying layers of protection to something that was once neutral. Before, the phone would sit there, thrown on the couch, ringing in plain sight. Now, it's always in her hand, in her purse, or under her pillow. Before, she would leave the room and leave WhatsApp open. Today she leaves the room and takes her phone to the bathroom. And even if you try to fool yourself by saying she was always reserved, deep down you know that wasn't the case. Because what betrays betrayal isn't the behavior itself, but the sudden change in pattern. And every change has a cause. Nothing changes without a reason. She now protects her phone as if it were a state secret. It's not just about the password, it's about bodily energy. She reacts tensely when you get too close, she monitors what you're looking at with her eyes, and when a notification arrives, her finger goes straight to the block button. This isn't casual behavior. It's a psychological warning sign, almost always unconscious, but real. And no, there doesn't need to be a nude photo in the chat history for this to be betrayal. Sometimes it's just the thrill of talking to someone that makes her heart beat, and that someone isn't you anymore. And what hurts most for the average man is realizing he's lost ground without being warned. Because she won't give you that warning. She won't turn around and say, "Look, I'm pulling away emotionally because there's another guy who makes me feel more alive." No, she'll keep hugging you, kissing you automatically, maybe even maintaining sex as a protocol. But everything in her body will be closed, locked, tense. Because now there's a place where she feels freer. And that place is on the other side of the screen. And here's a brutal fact. According to a study from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, 62% of women who cheat emotionally with another man begin the journey through innocent conversations on their cell phones. And more than half say that even without physical contact, they already felt like they were in a new mental and emotional relationship before they even touched each other. In other words, while you think everything is fine, her mind has already left, and only her body remains. For now. And then arises the question that plagues any man's mind. Do I have the right to go through her phone? Is this an invasion of privacy? And the answer is more uncomfortable than it seems, because it's not about surveillance, but about perception. When you have to invade something to discover the truth, you already know what the truth is. You just want confirmation. Cell phone protection isn't about fidelity. It's about emotional exclusivity. And when she's overprotective, it's because someone is already accessing parts of her that were once yours alone. Whether it's a silly conversation, an exchange of compliments, an audio recording of a strange laugh, these are all signs of emotional connection. And therein lies the danger. Because sex can be resisted, but emotional intimacy, when it grows with another, rarely returns to you. You begin to realize you've lost ground when everything becomes secret. She starts laughing at messages she doesn't show you. She responds silently. She gets distracted by her phone even when she's with you. And when you ask, "Who is it?" she answers nobody, but smiles, looking at the screen. And in that moment, you feel a cold shiver. You've just been replaced, and she's still sleeping next to you. And make no mistake, this doesn't happen out of nowhere. The process starts small. A random message, an old contact that reappears, a comment on a photo. At first, she resists, but if you've stopped being a source of excitement, she starts comparing. And when a man offers new validation, constant attention, and makes her feel more like a woman than you've been, she doesn't just respond, she engages. And worst of all, she justifies to herself that she's just being nice. And it's at this stage that you need to be most attentive. Because it's precisely when she hasn't done anything concrete yet, but has already started to change. She may continue to say she loves you, she may continue to sleep with you, she may even praise you in public. But if she started aggressively defending her digital privacy, if her cell phone has become an inviolable sanctuary, if she gets irritated when you ask something simple like "Who sent that message?" you need to understand. Betrayal doesn't begin with the touch, it begins with the hiding place. And here comes a reflection that's uncomfortable but liberating. Those who don't owe, don't fear. And yes, everyone has the right to privacy. But there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is when you have space. Secrecy is when you have something to hide. And if her cell phone has become a sealed capsule, you know what that means. Cleopatra, the woman who ruled empires through seduction, used mystery as a weapon. But she didn't hide it from her allies, only from her enemies. And when your wife treats you like an enemy when it comes to her intimacy, you need to understand that the alliance has been broken, even if no one has said it out loud. Because the body may be faithful, but the mind has already changed beds. And maybe you think, "But I trust her." Great, but also trust what your eyes are seeing. Because trust that's built is one thing. Quite another is trust that's feigned to avoid conflict. If you're afraid to bring up the subject, then you already know something's wrong. And maybe you think it's just a phase, that it will pass, that she's stressed, busy, rushed. But pay attention to something simple. What was once natural is now uncomfortable. What was once shared is now hidden. What was once yours is being shared with someone you don't even know exists. And if you don't act, you'll find out the hard way. Not by her confession, but by the look in her eyes when she's with someone else and no longer feels any burden. Because the cell phone, my friend, never lies. But whoever is messing with her heart has already learned to lie very well. There's a phase in a relationship that's more dangerous than the actual betrayal. It's the moment when you still sleep next to her, but emotionally, she's already moved on. When her touch has become technical, good morning has become protocol, and I love you is said like signing a lease that's already expired. The betrayal hasn't happened yet, but the feeling, it's already moved on. And this is where most men fail. They're not betrayed because they weren't good enough, but because they ignored all the warnings her silence was shouting. Indifference is the most lethal poison in any relationship. When she stops caring, it's not because she's calm, it's because she's empty. And it's in this emptiness that another man begins to fit in. The biggest mistake the average man makes is to think that fighting is the problem. That yelling, demanding, and jealousy are signs of wear and tear. They're not. They're signs that the bond still exists. Emotion, engagement. The woman who yells still loves. The one who remains silent. She said goodbye a long time ago. She just forgot to tell you. And that's why you need to understand this painful truth. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's contempt. Hatred still carries remnants of passion. Contempt is the absolute absence of affection. When she no longer cares if you go, if you come back, who you talk to, whether you go out or not, it's because the space you once occupied emotionally has been reconfigured. It's no longer yours. You've become a backdrop. And no matter how hard you try, she's no longer watching your movie. And then she changes, but not in the way you expect. Not with a fuss, a fight, or a crisis. She changes silently. She begins to no longer respond enthusiastically. She listens to you speak and doesn't react. She agrees to everything, just to avoid getting involved. She stops provoking you, confronting you, challenging you, and you think peace has returned, but in reality, it's already gone. And this is the cruelest part of emotional betrayal. When it happens silently, without a hint, without a fuss. You begin to notice that she no longer looks you in the eye with a sparkle, that her touch no longer carries warmth, that the kiss no longer has intention. And when you ask if everything is okay, she says yes, but with that tone that sounds more like a funeral than a yes. And you believe it, because you want to believe it, because the truth hurts more than illusion. And here's a curious point. Most men associate infidelity with sex, but in practice, most betrayals begin with emotional absence. When she stops admiring you, desiring you, connecting with you on a deep level, she begins to create space for another presence. And it's in this gap that the work friend, the childhood colleague, or the ex who reappeared settles in. Not with flirtations, but with attention, with laughter, with conversations that make her feel alive. And when a woman feels alive again outside of the relationship, she dies inside it. Ortega y Gasset said, "The combination of fascination and surrender is the basis of the love we're talking about." And if you no longer fascinate, her surrender will be to someone else. You didn't lose her because of a mistake. You lost her because you stopped inspiring fascination, because you became predictable, because you stopped building tension. And tension is the invisible thread that keeps a woman tied to the mystery of the man she chose. You'll say, "But I was present, I was affectionate, I did everything." Yes, you were the perfect man on the spreadsheet, but you forgot to be the man she desired in her flesh. And here's an uncomfortable contradiction. The man who gives everything all the time, who never causes discomfort, who is always available, is the man who becomes emotionally disposable the quickest. Why? Because he doesn't generate movement. He doesn't generate contrast. And the absence of contrast kills attraction. And then she starts to change. Not all at once, but in stages. First, she avoids telling you things. Then she starts going out more with her friends. Then she starts traveling alone. And you, because you trust, don't question her. And when you do, she gets angry. Because now you're trying to control something she no longer wants to share with you. And the most perverse thing? She'll maintain the appearance of normality. She'll say good morning. She'll hug you. She'll even have the occasional night of sex. But all of this will be with an absent body. A body that moves out of habit, not desire. And at this moment, my brother, you've already lost. You just haven't signed the papers yet. So what to do then? The answer isn't to control, investigate, or monitor. It's to observe coolly and act courageously. The first step is to recognize emotional indifference is a silent betrayal. and it must be treated as such. It's not about punishing, it's about protecting yourself. If she no longer resonates with your presence, if she treats your absence as a relief, you need to understand. The connection is over. And the worst mistake is to insist. Because the more you insist, the more she despises you. And contempt is irreversible. Now, perhaps you're remembering every silence she's had. Every time you tried to talk and she said, "It's nothing." Every time you tried to caress her and she turned away. And now you understand it wasn't stress, it was emotional detachment. It was a grief she was already experiencing without you knowing. And this awareness hurts. But it frees, because it takes you out of your illusion and gives you back control. And here's a provocation. If she stops responding to your messages today, how long do you think it will be before she notices? And if it's more than 48 hours, then you're already invisible. You just haven't realized it yet. What this chapter wants to show you is simple. Silence kills more than betrayal. Because while betrayal shocks, silence corrodes. And if you're feeling this, don't cling to memories. Cling to reality. Love without admiration is emotional handouts. And no man of worth deserves to live on emotional crumbs. If she no longer cares about where you are, if she no longer reacts when you approach, if she no longer fights or demands, congratulations, you've become a roommate. And roommates don't provoke desire. They don't create tension. They don't generate mystery. They are safe, but they are invisible. And if you continue to be the guy who never makes her suffer, she'll look for someone who makes her feel again, even if it's suffering. Because the worst feeling isn't pain, it's apathy. And in the end, the question that remains is brutal. What hurts more, being betrayed by someone you love, or being forgotten by someone who still sleeps next to you? She won't say she's lying. She won't leave a clear trail. And if you try to extract the truth with direct questions, you'll only hear what she's already rehearsed. Because, believe me, anyone who's cheating or flirting with cheating never improvises. She scripts it. And that's where the naive man stumbles. He asks, "Where were you? With whom? What time did you get back?" And she answers with conviction, a steady gaze, a serene smile. But behind her assurance, there's a hidden weakness. The script she memorized only works in chronological order. And this is precisely where the chaos test arises. The logic of lying is simple. It needs sequence. It needs to feel natural. It needs to flow like a movie that makes sense from beginning to end. And that's why most false versions begin at the beginning of the day and end with the expected outcome. I got home and slept. But the human brain has difficulty sustaining a false narrative when the timeline is reversed. Because she was trained to tell what happened, not to rewind what she didn't experience. And at that point, my friend, you gain a brutal strategic advantage. Imagine the scene. She says she went out with her friends, went to the movies, ate, then went to sleep at someone's house. Everything was wonderful. Everything was light. But instead of following the script, you ask, "How was the end of the night? Did you sleep well?" "Oh, that's great. And where were you before you went to sleep?" She says, "At so-and-so's house." You continue, "And before that, where did you go? Who were you with? What did you eat?" Each question comes with a calm, relaxed tone. You don't accuse, you don't pressure. You let her build or crumble her own story. And what happens in this game? If she's telling the truth, the answers flow naturally, even out of order, because she lived it. The feelings are real, the memory is spontaneous. But if it's a lie, each reversed question disturbs the castle. She hesitates, she changes details, it goes around in circles, it becomes defensive. Because the narrative has no roots, it was fabricated. And fabricated narratives don't withstand chaos. This is the test that philosophers like Schopenhauer already intuited in their reflections on truth. Truth is consistent with itself, lies are not. When you force someone's mind to remember something they didn't experience, they start to stumble over the gaps. And the gaps are where the truth hides. But be careful, this test is not for amateurs. It requires self-control, poise, and a lack of emotionalism. If you approach with an accusatory tone, they go into defense mode. And when defense is activated, even those who are right get confused. The key is to appear curious, not suspicious. Interested, not investigative. The tone makes the game feel like a conversation, not a trap. And that's what makes chaos so effective. Now you might think, but isn't that manipulation? No, it's discernment. Because you're the one being manipulated when you accept pre-made answers out of fear of discovering what's really going on. The chaos test isn't a trap. It's a psychological mirror. It doesn't force anyone to lie. It simply dismantles the poorly constructed lie. And the most interesting thing? If she has something to hide, she'll sabotage herself. She'll repeat phrases. She'll ask you to stop. She'll say you're too suspicious, that you're paranoid. She'll even try to turn the tables, because emotional chaos is unbearable for someone already feeling guilty. She'll resort to emotion because she's lost control of logic. And here's a key point. The brain under stress prioritizes instinct, not logic. And that's why the chaos test works. It doesn't seek proof. It exposes reactions. And uncontrolled reactions reveal more than any screenshot. Remember when we talked about changing behavior with cell phones? This is the first warning. But the chaos test is the second step. It's when you stop observing and start interacting, not as a judge, but as a strategist. Because in this game, the most jealous person doesn't win. The most attentive person wins. And if you apply this test and notice contradictions, what should you do? First, don't confront her immediately. Observe more. Gather patterns. See if the stories hold up at other times. Emotional betrayal is like a crack in concrete. It starts as a fissure, but if you press in the right place, the whole structure gives way. And you might think, but what if it's just me? What if she's telling the truth? Perfect. If she is, great. You're reinforcing trust. You're showing you're attentive without being paranoid. And she'll respect that, if she's mature enough to deal with a man who won't swallow any excuse. But if you realize something doesn't add up, then you're faced with a choice. Pretend you didn't see it or have the courage to face the truth. Because the man who fears the truth has already lost. The man who investigates with balance saves his own dignity. And pay attention to one final detail. The chaos test isn't just for her, it's for you too. Because by observing her reaction, you also see your own. You discover if you're prepared to know what you might already know. Because the worst thing isn't discovering she cheated on you. The worst thing is realizing you betrayed yourself by ignoring all the signs for fear of losing what was no longer yours. The truth is harsh. Either you learn to read the signs before it's too late, or you'll end up becoming the laughingstock of her group of friends. And the worst part? She'll still call you an amazing guy, while emotionally betraying you every day. But truly amazing is the man who understands the game before being played against it. Because today, my friend, the man who doesn't study female behavior is the first to be replaced. You now know the signs. You know what to look for. You're no longer blind, guided by false promises. But simply seeing the problem isn't enough. You need to become the kind of man she won't dare leave. Not out of fear, but out of uncontrollable desire. And for that, there's a method. A direct, no-nonsense path based on emotional triggers that reactivate female desire in seconds. I'm talking about the Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds. The definitive audiobook that reveals the darkest techniques in the psychology of attraction. No pre-packaged phrases, childish games, or coaching advice. This is an elite weapon. And if you've listened this far, it's because you're ready to operate at a new level. A level where you master the game and are no longer dominated by it. The manual is there. The next move is yours. You either change now, or accept continuing to be just the nice guy she let get away. The choice is brutal, but it's yours.